welcome again to the Sensu Show. It's another week, another exciting week. And of course, when we started this live show, I've been picking, like first thing some countries that I would like to tackle on because, especially now it's Olympic time. Oh, so it's Europe. So I started with England, and then last week we talked about France. Today we're going to talk about Italy. Because I'm Italian, and just kidding. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, my online family and friends. Welcome again, and also thank you for the courtesy of PHLV Radio. Oh my Lord, I'm so excited because the things that we're going to talk about later was about my guest. He's a good friend of mine. It's been a long time. I've known him since I guess before like 1902. But PHLV Radio. I've known him. He's still young though. He's only 25. But let me tell you a little bit. Since we're going to talk about Italy, I'm going to show you also some food that Actually, our dinner tonight we had spaghetti and pizza. But when I was in Italy before, their pizza tastes a little bit different though. But before that, let me tell you a little bit. If you're going to travel to Italy, I just want to give you a little guidance. Okay. Italians actually they celebrate their holidays in August, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow is August. You know why? Because it's the hottest month of the year in Italy. That's when they always go to the beach and stuff like that. And then if you're gonna go to Italy, it's not easy to rent a car. So you might be walking a lot. So bring a lot of good shoes. As Americans, we always wear tennis shoes anyway. That's why they always know they're American because European they don't like tennis shoes all the time. And right now they accept credit cards because when I was there, they only like cash. They like when you go to the store, they look at you like, what is this? Because they don't like credit cards. They want like really cash. Because how Italian they talk about their hand like, what is this? What is this? So now you can actually use your credit cards. And also, that's the very good thing. The other good thing is when you imitate Italian, you have to be careful because sometimes it looks funny. You know how, of course, we have this stereotype that Italian people, they talk with their hands. They always do this. And when they explain something, they do like that. But it is true, Just be careful that you don't offend them because, that's the kind of things that they like to do. And then, of course, the restaurants, the menus. As I mentioned a while ago, Italian food is a little taste different because they're very authentic. When you go to Italy, their pizza is like plain tomatoes. I mean, I think I like the Pizza Hut better here than, because it's got it's pretty thick, and see, if you look at the food right there, I mean, the spaghetti, it just tastes so different. I guess the American, because we put too much stuff on it, that's why we're bigger than the Italian because we put so much whatever ingredients. But their food is totally a little bit different. And of course, because we're talking about Italy, we're going to talk about Pope Francis. As you know, he lives in the Vatican City, and he's the most popular. And being me Catholic, I actually, oh, my hat! I got so excited, I lost it. But I always talk about because he's actually the biggest person that you can honor being Catholic. And so when I was in Italy, I had a chance to visit the Vatican City, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, you guys. So much about Italy now, because as I said, first of all, I just want to congratulate our athletes. My God, they won gold, silver, bronze, especially our ladies in gymnastics. Oh my God, Simone Biles, I'm so proud of you, girl. I know you have so much pressure, and at least it's over, and you brought us gold, ladies. Oh my God, my girls, girl power. Anyway, so much for that. Now I'm going to introduce to you my guest tonight. And as I said, I'm so excited. He's an author, he's a composer, he's a poet, and also he's a tutor. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. James Goodman. Hi.
Hello. Hi, thanks, Sue. You
are so sweet.
I don't know the Italian word for hat, otherwise I would say it. But chapeau. At least I'm in the same continent.
I know. I guess we can send that to return and it just fall off. But anyway, I'm going to put it on later. Now let's talk about. That's why I invited him because it fascinated me the book that he wrote. He wrote the book entitled "The Light of Day." And this book is very, I don't know if you could say controversial, because there's a lot of stuff here that if you don't have a good sense of humor and if you don't have, a lot of, you have so much, if you get into it too much, you're probably going to be like, oh, okay, why is he talking about like this? But there's a lot of interesting things here. But first of all, James, were you born and raised here in California?
No, actually, I was born in New York City. And
Oh.
I was raised until I was 18 outside the city.
Mm-hmm.
But then I came back after college
Mm-hmm.
and graduate school. I went back and lived in New York City for 10 years.
For 10
And
years.
then I came out here, and I've been here for like the last 30 years.
30 years.
All that means is I've been around many years, apparently. That's a lot of
Yeah,
years.
but you said you're only 25.
You said I'm only 25. And I was going, oh, thank you, Sam, sir. I'm so grateful for that. I wish I was 25 again. But you can take one look and I'm not 25.
Okay, you're 30.
Okay. Yeah. I'll take it.
You've been here 30 years
I'll
in
take
California.
Yeah.
So there's a cutoff age.
I'm a
Right.
Californian now. I feel much more at home here. When I go back to New York City, I feel like a stranger.
I know. It's true. Well, California and we're so open. I mean, not that way, but open, like we're so friendly. We say hi to everybody, I guess. Because when I was in New York also before, I don't know. I don't want to say the stereotype that a lot of people don't really say hi when you're on the street. There's like, don't bother me kind of
New
thing.
York City is interesting because if you live on a street,
Yeah.
it becomes your little village.
Yeah.
And I got to know everybody on my street.
Yes.
I lived actually on West 84th Street, which is also known as Edgar Allan Poe Street, because he lived on that street back in the 1800s.
That's why you became a poet?
And well, maybe. I mean, we had a man who lived in our building who used to get on his balcony, which overlooked the street. And we had a festival, an Edgar Allan Poe festival, where people would come and sell all kinds of things, like a street fair. And he would get out there and he would have a raven, because there's one of Poe's most famous poems is The Raven. And he would recite The Raven to the street. He used to do that in Central Park, too.
That's where I think you got inspired.
Maybe. It could be.
Yeah, because in 1966, you started writing. As I'm reading your book, in 1966, you started being inspired to be a poet, right? That's when you were only...
it was interesting. We had an English class, and we had a book called Sound and Sense. It was a little blue book.
Yes.
And it had poems in it. And I had never really read poetry until then. I was 15 at the time. And I really thought the poems in there were terrific. They were like like short stories, but in like one page. And it told a whole thing, and a whole feeling came out. And that's kind of where I got going. And then some things happened, and I just started doing this.
Yes.
And I've been writing poetry since I was 15, and I'm still,
I'm
still doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not that disciplined. I only do it when I'm inspired.
Yes.
So over 55, 60 years, I've amassed a number of poems. And that's when I decided, since I'm not getting any younger, if I want to share this
30,
with the world,
30.
30. I love these things. But I better get this done. So it took me a long time because I had it in notebooks and scraps of paper. I even had it on when you used to get back shirts from the laundry. This is like in the 60s.
Yes.
There would be a piece of cardboard in the shirt, the starched shirt.
Uh-huh.
And I even have some poems that I ended up writing on the cardboard things. And I kept all this stuff. And so I had to go through it all and just pick it out. And some of it needed editing.
Yes.
But that's kind of how it started. And that's why it's called, actually, the title comes from the fact that this almost didn't happen because I had some health issues and I almost wasn't here to be able to do this. So when I was...
We're glad you're back.
Thank you. So since I was saved a few times, I said, you know what? I'm going to use that time and get these things down.
Yes.
And I spent, it took me about 6 months.
6 months
to pull it together and find a publisher and get it done.
You did.
So
and
And that's why it's called The Light of Day, because it barely saw the light of day.
Yes, you're right. It's a perfect title, actually. But the one thing that really struck me is because this book is dedicated to your parents.
Yes.
Yes, and that's beautiful. Because when I wrote about my mother too, it was dedicated about my mother. So, and your parents, because I have to wear my glasses because I'm only 25. So my I'm younger than him.
I've got my glasses on, obviously, too.
It's Kit and Joe Goodman. So tell us a little bit about your parents. Were they like you, that like music, like poetry,
Well,
or?
it's funny because especially, I would say music.
Uh-huh.
We lived in New York, outside of New York City,
Uh-huh.
and they loved to go to musicals on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And they would come back, and they didn't take me to see the musicals, but they would always buy the albums. So we had all the albums from My Fair Lady, and Camelot, Oliver Twist. I mean, dozens and dozens of Broadway shows I had on albums. So I used to come back after school, and this is when I was, starting from the time I was 11 or 12. And I would put the record on, these are long playing vinyl records, put that on, and I'd sit in this big chair in the living room, and I would just listen to these musicals. And I think that is a lot of my inspiration for writing, because the musicals,
composer, you have to.
It's not just the music; it's the words, and they're poems.
Yes.
The lyrics are poems. So that was really what got me started. And then, of course, when the Beatles hit, my best friend and I were determined to, become as famous as the Beatles. So we thought we were going to somehow do that. That's a whole other story.
Did you ever see them perform in person? The Beatles?
No, I didn't see them perform. I wish I had. I saw Hendrix and Janis Joplin.
Yes, you talked about Jimi Hendrix in your book.
I have a poem in there. It's kind of long, so we probably won't read that. But,
can you quote a little bit of it? Or
well, it's actually, what's interesting about that poem is I incorporated all the titles from Electric Ladyland, the album. That it's really a poem made up of titles from that album. So it's a story, and I use the titles to tell the story.
I know, because it's interesting. I really have to read it like 2 or 3 times to understand it.
Well, that's not so good. I don't want people to have to read my poems 3 times. Okay. Most of the poems, I kind of have a way of thinking about poetry the same way that, you see a piece of art on the wall. You don't have to necessarily think about it. I mean, you can have lots of education about art, but also if you look at art, you can feel it, or you don't feel it, or you get something from it, and it's immediate. And kind of that's my approach to poetry. Is I try and write in a way that is you just have to read it. And hopefully you'll feel it. And it's not complicated. Just
like a lot of rappers. Well, they're poets. They are. What they rap is what they, their experience in life, and that's what you have in this book. That's why it's very interesting, because you talk about love, that you were in love, so much love. You were you were in the street. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, like most of us, some of us have experienced that emotion more than once, and I was not a particularly mature young man, and I felt that a number of times, and it was very powerful for me.
Yes, and like this one, it says "Bite of Love." I like that title. Some women to beware of do exist. Their forms are often beautiful and clear. Are you talking about me? But look behind their eyes. Ooh, there lies a hell, a desperate confusion with no tears. Oh, you're really reading women so deep in this one.
Well, this is about a particular woman.
Yeah.
I mean, and she stole my heart. Aww. And she ripped it into shreds. And I don't know anyone who's been around has probably had the heart broken for one reason or another.
We all experienced that.
And that but it turned out that she was frankly a little not well. Okay, and I didn't realize it. I didn't see it, but I still was madly in love with her.
Yeah, but you have to go through all of that because
I don't regret it.
Yes,
I don't regret it,
because what happened is when you're in love and you think you found love, but actually nowadays you found love. with my girl Jennifer. You have to go through the process
I had
before
to
you find
go
the
through-
right person.
Yeah, it took a while. It took me a few times.
Yes, and also when you dedicate, well, when you mentioned about me and Dennis to thank us about this book, and a lot of the people over here that you acknowledge, it was just a heartfelt because we've been
Well,
friends for so long.
I'll tell you, even most people didn't even know I was writing this
Yeah.
book who were my friends.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they were my friends and that I knew I would have their support, it gave me the strength to keep going. Because there's times, like many artists, I'm sure those of you out there, you don't even have to be an artist to sometimes have a lot of self-doubt. And that's something that I've had to wrestle with. So even doing this book, I would have, in fact, I have a poem in here.
Yes.
It's a very short poem. If I can find it quickly.
Go ahead. Well, while you're looking for it, how about this? I'm 27 and I just don't understand. Now, this part you were still trying to find yourself, isn't it?
Yes, that poem. What page is that on?
That's page 26.
Yeah, that's actually a song.
It's a song, right? It's a song.
Yeah, that's a song. I've never produced it. Some of my songs I produced. This one I haven't produced.
And you did,
but I have a melody. I have the melody. And, it goes, I'm 27 and I just don't understand just what's expected on this journey as a man. The future's not so bright, let's face it if we can. Dimmed expectations in this blessed of all blessed lands. Ooh, it's just a melody. Don't take it seriously. It's just a simple song. Now it won't take too long. Whoa. So that's kind of in between. It goes like that. But then instead of singing it, I'll just read the rest of it if that's okay. I share a place with 2 others and 3 cats. We just don't make enough to go to our own flats. Andy's an actress waitress looking for an inn, but all she talks about is nepotism. Marty is unemployed. He still gets help from home. Even when he finds work, he still has student loans. Ooh, it's just a melody. Don't take it seriously. It's just a simple song. Now it won't take too long. Whoa. As for myself, well, I'm all right, and that's a fact. My biggest headache is an allergy to cats. So, and then you sing the melody again. So anyway, that
is beautiful.
That was written in 1977. However, I got this book to a good friend's child who is about that age. And she said, I really relate to that because they've got student loans. A lot of the issues from 1977 hasn't changed.
Yes.
So for at least some people, this is
like a lot of
speaks
students.
to them.
Yeah,
a lot of students are young people.
Young people.
And just kind of not knowing, especially with the economic times that have been difficult. So that's where, let's face it, dimmed expectations in this blessed of all blessed land. So people can't afford housing a lot of times. They're living with their parents again. So even though this was written, 50 years ago,
I'm not
almost,
good
or
on
47 years ago, the issues haven't really changed. Maybe that's unfortunate. But anyway, that's kind of what's in this book. In fact, on the back, I write, there's darkness here as well as light, and much that's in between. And that's really kind of, it's just reflecting experiences that I think a lot of us have had.
Yeah. And you talk about where you live now with your wife, Jennifer. Mr. Benton's house is for sale. Now, this is an exciting story,
Well, this is kind of interesting because this is a true story.
Yeah.
And it's called Mr. Benton's House is for Sale. At 93, he bends and slaps the ground hard as if to say, I'm still alive, you know? Not to me, but to the earth itself. Then he shows me, a stranger, where his good silverware is hidden, unseen by anyone for 10 years or more. Wild aging neurons firing in some too thick gel, catching them mid-flight, oxidizing their once elastic spirit into powdery dust. I see my future self in his cloudy eyes. For like those moments when you hear yourself snore, I have sensed that dreaded dust drifting across the many folds of my own mind. So that's that one.
So you met this guy that really owns the house.
Yeah. This was at a time. These days, the sellers don't ever usually meet the buyers.
Yeah, no, they don't.
They don't do that. But at this
don't.
time, you could come in and he was there, and in '93 he was like 6'5". He's a very tall guy, and he was okay.
Yeah,
but he was a little bit off. He was a little bit off too. Like, why was he showing me where silverware was hidden? It's like, I'm not interested in your silverware.
He wants you to have it? Or?
No. He just was showing me stuff. He was just, I don't know. He was 93.
He was all alone. Is that what it was?
His wife was there, but she was suffering from a really advanced Alzheimer's.
Oh, that's sad. That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But one thing when you said about in 1977, prior to that, you said adolescence is a bitch. So,
adolescence. Can we say that word? Where's that one? Where's that one?
43.
Okay. I think.
I kind of like reading it. I said, "Oh my God, this is so serious." And then when I saw that title, I'm like, "Oh, it woke me up."
A lot of the titles came after the poems. Like the titles were written while I was putting the book together, not necessarily because I would read these poems. Some of these poems I hadn't read for 50 years. Yes. I would write them and they would be in the notebook and I wouldn't see them.
Yes.
So I'm going through them and I read this one. And let me just read it. It's very short, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. Jagged thoughts, grating across wearing nerves, wearing patience, wearing sanity, ebbing away. What is it? What is it? Primordial oozes, primeval flows, dredging, primitive urges to consciousness, slush heavy fluid pushing its way through the body and brain. The eyes show the evil pain, the nervous animal movements of the jungle within. And I read that and I went,
what were you thinking?
Adolescence is a bitch. Because I was an adolescent.
You were only 20. No,
I was 20. I was 20
yeah,
when I wrote that.
You were 20.
And I was going through a very hard time. I mean, that was a rough, man.
That's a title that a lot of teenagers nowadays,
well,
in their 20s nowadays be thinking.
Isn't it true? It is. Adolescence
applies nowadays.
You don't know who you are. Yes. You don't know where you fit in the world. I was in school at the time, and it was just I didn't know where I was.
Yes,
it was just emotionally it was a really tough time. I remember going through the campus one night, feeling in this terrible mood that this poem came from, and I climbed up into this tree, and I sat in the tree all night just crying.
Wow.
I mean that's where I was at that time. And that's one of the things where music saved me. I mean, literally, I started sneaking into the music department and started playing piano. I had done that in high school.
Did you go to school to learn piano?
No.
Or self-taught?
No, self-taught, yeah.
Wow.
So I just started playing for hours and hours, and that was my therapy. Because I needed some outlet.
Yes.
So really, the music and the poetry were just ways to try and hold on to my sanity.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? With this kind of situation, I think you kind of touch on, and probably people that are watching us right now, you'll be able to help them, because sometimes when you're all alone and you don't know what to do, you need something that will inspire, or something that you can pick up, not a gun. Because
no.
But a book or anything that will focus on your mind, that will probably change your prospect in life, basically.
It
right?
Can.
And that's what happened to you. You pick up a piano, you started to learn how to play piano, because you're thinking about, okay, it got to get better. And there's got to be some other outlets that I would be able to be interested in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of is missing nowadays, because a lot of the kids nowadays, or teenagers, are in computer. And there's a lot of junks out there in the computer. And then it kind of like, they have no inspiration, or they're being taught the wrong way, because they be reading or watching too much what's in the computer. But none of them are all good. None of them all good information, and they channel to their brain, and maybe this is good for me. No. That's why there's so many violence, there's so many bad things that's happening in a lot of teenagers nowadays. But I wish we can go back to the oldest like you, because we didn't have internet. We didn't have a lot of internet.
I think what I'm hearing you say
Yeah.
is that what's really a shame for young people today is they don't have time just to get to know themselves.
Yes.
Because they're filling their time with all this stuff and they're so worried
The
about what other people
phones
think,
and
and the phones and the games and everything. And how do you create a relationship with yourself if you don't take time just to be alone sometimes and be with yourself?
Amen.
Here's a poem called Let Your Mind Feel, which I wrote when I was 16. Okay. And it's very short, so it won't take long. Walk down a street at night alone with your hands in your pockets and your step slow. Let your mind feel like the wind when it rustles leaves, and believe that you are not alone.
Wow, that's so deep. That's pretty deep.
For me, it was. I mean, because I remember feeling that. I was walking down the street and the wind was blowing and I was by myself. And all of a sudden I felt like I was in the presence of something. You know, that it wasn't just me. I'm not alone. Now, unfortunately, adolescence is a bitch, which I wrote 4 years later. I was in a terrible space. I had forgotten this. And I think a lot of times in life, we learn lessons sometimes when we're younger, and then we forget them and we have to relearn them again, which is one of the things I think poetry can be really helpful with, because it made me remember that. It's not just all terrible. There's also powerful connecting things in this world that can help us.
And the thing that really struck me, what you just said, is to learn to understand yourself, to listen to yourself, you know, and that's a lot of things that's missing nowadays. Because as I said, all this technology, it could be helpful, but at the same time, it's damaging.
Without some space around us, you have to have some space, you know, to create. You can't create when there's just all this noise.
And writing is like, it's like ancient nowadays. You know, reading a book is like ancient nowadays, you know. But we got to start going back to the books, because we could learn a lot. Like this book, you can learn about, you know, how to in touch with yourself. You know, how can you find yourself and be inspired and do something else that you think that, I mean, you know, be creative. You know, and in this book, I saw that you're very creative. That's why you became a composer. You became a poet. You know, I mean, you have to really find yourself. You know, and that's why it's very inspiration. You guys, you need to get this. This is available. Where in Amazon?
You can get it at Amazon. What you have to do is, if you want to find it, you have to go to the bookstore and you have to put my name in. You can't do it by the title for some reason. I don't know why. But if you put James J. Goodman in the search field, this book will come up right away. Or you can also go to bookbaby.com, which is the publisher, and go to their bookstore, and you can put in my name or the title.
But if you're in the Philippines, how can you go to the bookstore?
Well, that's a good question. And here's how I'm going to address that. I didn't want to do an ebooks version because I love books. I love actual holding the books. But there are so many restrictions now. I tried to send a copy to a friend in Ireland, and it would cost me $20 to send it, and then $17 in duty fees. And I said, well, that's crazy. I can't afford to do stuff like that. So I am going to do an e-version, which will be much easier. And I'm going to do an audiobook version where I'm going to narrate.
But you can listen to it and inspire. I mean,
hopefully, I mean, I hope people will be inspired. That is the idea. The whole purpose is to help people feel connected. Obviously, I want them to feel connected to me. As a you know, I have an ego. I want you to feel connected to me. And I also want you to feel
you didn't want to be
connected
somebody else
to other people, because I think there's a lot of these poems that can connect people to just humanity and also to yourself.
Yes.
You know, you can read it and say, I feel that. I've been through that.
Yes. And then at this point, we're going to take a break, because I want to show them, for the first time that I introduced you to my show is we talked about Dr. Martin Luther King and how you feel about him and how he inspired you. And so while we're watching that video, we can also eat our food, our Italian food that I prepared. So, and then later on, we're going to introduce that to them. Okay, so at this point, we're going to take a break, and you guys watch first time that James into my show.
To kind of speak to the two questions you were asking. The first one, I believe, was how Dr. King affected me personally. And I can tell you that it affected me deeply. His teachings and hearing him speak was incredibly moving for me. And really, since I grew up with very little experience of what Black people were going through in this country, it was an eye-opening experience for me to just hear him speak so eloquently about not only what his people were going through as Black Americans, being the repression and the brutality that they were undergoing, that his movement brought that into the public eye in a way that I hadn't experienced anything. I didn't have any Black friends growing up. There were no Black people around me, really, in my school. And it wasn't because it was openly segregated. It was segregated by geography and economics. And, I just didn't understand how unfair that was. It wasn't part of my reality until watching him speak made me understand, or started to let me understand, that the whole idea of being woke, that is so derided by the right. Being woke is simply becoming to an understanding of just how deep institutional racism is part of our society. It's not about all the things the right is trying to make it be. It's just getting sensitivity, like what happened in Tulsa back in the 1920s, when a whole Black neighborhood was wiped out and hundreds of people were slaughtered. That was never publicized. I didn't learn about that in school. But the sensitivity that Dr. King brought to the issue and the eloquence with which he spoke was just amazing. Like Lincoln or Kennedy, he's in that pantheon. Gandhi, he's a giant. He's a humanitarian. And the problem is not enough of his words are being spoken today. Here's the last thing I want to say. Ray gave a speech at the Conference of New Politics in Chicago in 1967. I believe it was called The Three Evils of Society. Very short. For the good of America, it is necessary to refute the idea that the dominant ideology in our country, even today, is freedom and equality, while racism is just an occasional departure from the norm on the part of a few bigoted extremists. Racism can well be that corrosive evil that will bring down the curtain on Western civilization. So that was written 55, 56 years ago, right? Now, it's not speaking to the condition of our country today, where you have people maintaining, it's, what's the matter with these Antifa people? Why are they, it's not really such a problem, Well, it is. The racism in this country is still deep and still painful and still as ugly and still as dangerous as it was back then. And look at the way our country is polarized. That race is very much a huge part of that polarization, unfortunately. So Dr. King's words mean as much today as they did over 50 years ago. And we better listen to him, because we're not on a good path right now. So hopefully, if more people spread his message, we might be able to turn this around. I certainly hope so.
Hi, James.
Hi,
So since we're in Italy, of course. Oh, we got a drink. Okay. Well, let's talk about what we just watched. And I know when you were my guest, that was Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And we talked about how did Dr. King change people's lives, or there's any change right now in a new generation or the new era. But as you mentioned, there's still a lot of things to work on, and for me being, being discriminated growing up in the Philippines, all my life I've been discriminated because I'm the darkest in the family. So I've been called all kinds of names, and I thought I'd get used to it, but it's not. It's still processing to me. Every time I think about it, it still makes me cry. Because it's the fact that it no, see.
Oh, that's
Because it's really hurt. And see, I'm already 25 and I still feel the pain of a little girl walking in school in the street and being called names. And that's why it's really, and just think about it. And you really touch a lot of things there. That racism is really, really, it's not a good thing.
It's so corrosive.
It's so corrosive.
And
It's so
it's
corrosive.
multi-generational
Mhm.
because I've been reading your book about your mom
Yeah.
and the racism she had to deal with,
Oh
the
my
racism
God.
that you've had to deal with,
Yeah.
and things that are still going on. For
Mhm.
instance, there's this concept of what's called replacement theory,
Yeah.
where white supremacists believe that the Jews are trying to replace them, and that Black people and people of color
Yes.
are trying to replace the white race,
Mhm.
and so they see that as a threat.
Yes.
Whereas it's so
Huh.
ridiculous and
Very
dangerous,
ridiculous.
and it inspired me to write a poem.
And the hurtful part of it is because a lot of people believe it.
Wow.
In this country, not even
Not just
people
in
that
this
are,
country.
yeah, even though they're not born and raised here, they don't understand it, especially the Asian culture. And I'm ashamed to say that, but a lot of Asian culture that was not born and raised here, they don't even believe that there was slavery here. They don't even believe that there was a Holocaust. They don't even believe that we have been discriminated. And because they never experienced, when they came on board in this country, they already have papers or they have education where they came from. And this kind of shocked me that this 2024, I asked some people, some Filipinos, because I'm part Filipino, and basically it's like, so do you know what's happening now that we're someone is trying to bring back 1960s, and for them to say, oh, that didn't happen, there was no slavery.
So you're saying that you have people that you know
Not that I know
that did not know that
there was a slavery in this
Black people were brought here as slaves.
that they were shackled and being sold and all that. And I just don't understand. It's hard for them to understand that. I mean, these are educated people.
Well, they're
You know,
not
to me,
educated enough.
stuff. I mean, I'm not that educated like them, but I feel like I'm more educated than them because I don't want to say the word, but they're more ignorant is the right word.
Yeah, they're certainly ignorant about history.
Yes, about history.
There's no question
Yeah.
about that, because if they don't know
Mhm.
that thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands
Yes.
of people were brought here as slaves and sold,
They would say
and their
it.
families were ripped apart, and people were treated
Mhm.
like worse than cattle sometimes.
And they never been here in 1960s when minorities have no rights. I mean,
But when they had separate
back
drinking
then,
fountains.
and I have to explain to them that my mom, as a very popular in the Philippines, like Pilita Corrales, which is a good friend of my mom. She could be passed as a white woman. So when they were in Las Vegas and they had a show, and they didn't believe it that yeah, you can go out there and just go to a restaurant and be accepted. No, when they went to the restaurant, they were refused to be served because they're not white. And because they're minorities, it doesn't matter how light skinned you are not completely white, and they're not going to serve you. That was the opening in their eyes. And then when they went back to the hotel, they can't even go back in front of the hotel. They have to go in the kitchen side, in the back, to go back to their rooms. And that's when it opened up their eyes in reality. And so that's why I said it's a shame that some Filipinos that I know that they don't understand. I mean, they're lucky they live in California because California is very diverse. But if you go back to the South, you might feel it. You will feel it. You not might, but you will feel it. And that's when it probably opened up their eyes, like, oh, this is really real. Racism is real. You know,
Yeah,
it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad,
it's-
and that's why your poem really reflects that.
Yeah, this was a much more recent poem. This was written in 2022, and it's called Replacement Theory. Replacement theory is when you replace common sense and critical thinking by sucking otherwise reasonable people into an internet rat hole lined with lies, creating a community of self-reinforcing madness where fear is the common fuel and hate is the common currency, where the oppressors are the oppressed and the Holocaust never happened, and aliens, yes, aliens control world leaders, and Putin, yes, Putin is on the right side of history. I have heard all these things from otherwise reasonable people. And we are in danger of electing ourselves into this world of insanity where hate and fear will rule and blood will run. It has happened before. We are seeing multiple sparks from that world with every crime of hate. Can we replace replacement theory before it is too late?
Yes, it's really all about how we gonna change the narrative. How can we change to have unity in this country, have empathy in this country? Because it seems like everybody's so divided nowadays. This politics is not helping us.
Well, it's a very difficult problem.
Yes.
When you have a large segment of the population that doesn't believe an election that was fair was actually fair.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to deal with because it's like, well, it's irrefutable. All the court cases were all tried. A lot of the judges were appointed by Trump himself, by his administration, and they still found those cases where they tried to justify electoral mismanagement or whatever, or fraud. It just wasn't there. And so to still maintain after all that, oh, it wasn't a fair election, is so undemocratic. That alone should disqualify someone. If they have brought all their cases into the courts and they've tried and tried and tried, and no matter who the judge was, a conservative judge, it doesn't matter. They all said, except there was one case that found that there was fraud, and it was like a handful of votes that had no impact on the election. That was there. It isn't that it can't happen. It's just it did not happen the way that they're claiming it happened, and they still claim it happens. That's a terrifying thing when you have people who will not accept reality. That is one of the things that scares me the most, is like, how do you have a reasonable conversation with someone who is completely unreasonable?
And plus, for people that they saw it on TV, not January 6th. And what happened for them to say, oh, it's not real? How can you?
Or they weren't, it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad. That's what they're saying.
And it was
and you saw it, and even a lot of the congressmen who at the time said this is too much,
running away,
and they were running for their lives, and they were saying this was terrible, and then a few days later they were backpedaling and changing their stories, and you could see what a horrible event it was. Anyone who was willing to look at the actual footage of that day, and people were killed on that day.
And people suffered. People were still suffering from PTSD, or the military. The police that were there,
the poor policemen who tried to hold it back,
beat up and all that. So it's really sad. And the thing about it, I don't know, how can you always change people's mind and open up their minds? I mean, you don't.
Well, I have to hope that there's enough people that are not so, frankly, brainwashed. Because I really see it as a kind of brainwashing where you have to accept this. I accept this reality, even though it can't be real. This is my reality, but it's not real. It's actually the opposite of what's real. But there's enough people that hopefully there's enough of people out there that will really step up and realize what's at stake, what's coming up, and if you and we'll vote.
And I enjoy the democracy. I hope it will never go away, but in a way, I know we're getting too deep and deep.
Well,
but
this is still, I believe, just one of the greatest countries
Yes,
that's ever
it
been.
is.
And
It's
so to
always
say let's
been.
make America great again. America is already
Always
great.
been great.
It's still great. Let's keep it great by keeping it democratic
Uh-huh.
and not becoming an authoritarian regime.
Regime.
Please, people, I
Mhm.
beg you, think about it.
Oh, we just need to vote. Basically, just
Yeah,
vote.
just vote. And
Whatever.
get your,
Just,
everyone you know,
Mhm.
explain to them how important it is.
Yes, how
Get out
important
the
it is.
vote. Whatever you believe, frankly, I believe that there's one responsibility that we have as
Yes.
Americans,
And there's one
and that is
right.
to vote no matter, I don't care what your
Mhm.
political persuasion is. I have mine, obviously. I
Mhm.
wear it on my sleeve. I don't try and hide it.
Mhm.
But it's so important to exercise your vote. And don't think it doesn't count. It really
counts.
matters. There have been some elections recently that were decided. It was one vote
Mhm. Yeah,
that made a difference in
in
California.
California,
And
one vote that made a difference.
in some of these swing states,
Yes.
it's amazing that a few 100,000 votes is going to determine who becomes the next president
Yes.
of this country.
Mhm.
So better,
Mhm.
let's get our act together
Yes.
and keep America free.
Yes. Yes. And okay, besides that, let's talk about how can you inspire a lot of young generations out there to be a poet?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Read some poetry. Check out this book. Check out this book. And if you like it, start expressing yourself,
Mhm.
because nobody taught me. If these poems are good, they're good because they came from someplace real.
Mhm.
So you find your place, you find the place that's real inside you, and work at it and express it. It doesn't matter if it's in poetry or it's music
Mhm.
or it's acting or it's visual arts or it's getting involved.
Mhm.
Whatever your passion is, I don't care. It doesn't have to be even in the arts.
Mhm.
You know, anything that you do with your heart
Yes.
and with all the passion that you have, it becomes, to me, a form of art.
Yes.
Like a doctor who really cares about his patients and who wants to know everything they can possibly know about their subject. That's a kind of artist.
Yes.
To me.
I mean, be a poet. You didn't have to be like, okay, you wrote something today and that's over with. No, just write something what's on your mind, little at a time, one day at a time. And one day maybe you want to put it all together, compile it, and then you make it into a book. Or maybe something.
You can do that.
Or that's what you did.
Even if no one sees it, do it for yourself.
For yourself. And this is a good therapy, actually. It's a good therapy.
It's literally saved me.
Yes, it saves. And that's cheaper than going to a therapist.
A whole lot cheaper, folks. Paper and pencil. That's, their computer. Pretty much everybody has a computer. Just get to it. Although I like the physicality of actually writing with a pencil on paper.
Yes.
There's something about that it connects me.
Yes.
To myself.
Yeah, my therapy is good. I mean, like just singing out of the blue and just,
Well, there's something, we're talking about books here and writers. Our host here is an author and has written a fascinating book about her mother. And you talk about the things that she's gone through.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm not finished with it yet. But what a world. What a difficult, tough world.
I mean,
your mother had to navigate.
Changed entertainment in the Philippines. I mean, to be accepted. Nowadays, you've been accepted whatever your size, your color, and everything. But when she started, there's only one color, which is you have to be light skinned and you have to be beautiful. It doesn't matter if you have no talent. And she broke that boundary. I said, look, you have to look at a person with their talent, not because of the way they look or the way what their color is. And it took her years, but she broke that color barrier and everybody followed. But that's why I'm so proud of my mom. And she's always going to be rock and roll. Well,
I just think this is it's terrific.
Yes.
It's very,
thank you.
You can Get it at Amazon, right?
Yes, you can check it at Amazon.com. Well, James, thank you so much. It was a very interesting conversation.
Same here.
And
Thank
so,
you so much for having me.
oh,
Really
you're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're welcome. And it's really, and I hope a lot of people learn from what we talked about when it comes to self-thought and inspire yourself and listen to yourself. And so a lot of things that we taught. I mean, honor your parents. And
Yeah,
also,
I owe a lot to them.
Yes.
They were very open-minded, and they let me find
Mhm.
my own way.
Yes,
I'm very grateful to them. They didn't try and force me
yes,
into any particular direction.
yes. And I just want to give you the last cheer.
No, cheers to you.
Continue success. And we're going to talk soon again.
I hope so. We had a great time. With or without the camera, we'll be talking again soon. But
So just now, I just want to thank everyone, my online family and friends. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And hope to see you again next week, next Wednesday. And thanks again for PHLB Radio, courtesy of Viva Las Vegas. I mean, Johan Sison. Thank you, Johan, and team for helping me. And also, don't forget to share, subscribe, and also spay neuter your animals. We want to stop the population a little bit, because they're everywhere. We've got to help that. And again, you take care of yourself, and please pray for our athletes, because we need more gold, silver, bronze. We have to support our athletes,
yes,
the Olympics. So when they come home, we're going to celebrate them. So thank you guys again. Love, peace, and joy. Oh, let me teach you my sensu greeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is
What do we do?
Pum.
Oh.
Thank you guys. Love you. God bless you all. Bye.
Just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.